everybody, it's Linnea. Today I'm going to be creating with some scene building dies, as well as the Slimline scallop die set, and the Today's Heroes stamp set from LDRS Creative. Now, the Today's Heroes stamp set is not a stamp set that you're going to find in the LDRS Creative store. It's actually a free stamp set with purchase going on right now while supplies last. So as I'm doing this voiceover, there are still some of these amazing stamp sets left. So make sure you head over to the LDRS Creative website and place an order, and this stamp set will be added to your order. So today I'm going to be using some scene building dies, which are meant for smaller cards, probably 5.5 inches cards or shorter, but I'm going to be using them for a slimline card. So I have a couple colors of green cardstock as well as some white cardstock, and I'm going to use the Up a Tree die and the Lil Pink Houses die, and I'm cutting this from both types of cardstock. However, the green cardstock is going to be in front. I'm going to be using the white just for my coloring. So you can see here that I'm using the Lil Pink Houses die, and it is hanging off the top of the green cardstock. That's totally fine because I don't actually need the houses for this die, or for this color of cardstock rather. I just need the hill below it. I'm going to be using the white so that I can color the trees and the houses whatever colors I want. Now I also die cut some little coordinating pieces. I cut a little sun from the Here Comes the Sun die set, and I did also cut some clouds, but I didn't end up using them for this card. There just wasn't room for them, and I didn't want to overcrowd this. So here's how I'm going to stretch the dies to make them fit a slimline card. When I cut these pieces of cardstock, the green ones especially, I cut them to be 3 1/4 by 8 1/2. So 8 1/2 is a little bit longer. My finished card project is going to be 3 1/4 by 8 1/4 inches. So all I'm going to do is just extend those cut lines from the die out to the edges of the cardstock. And now here you can kind of see what I'm going to be doing. I'm just going to snip off these trees, and I'm going to be able to lay this green hill on top of the white cardstock. And so when I color the cardstock, it's going to have brown tree trunks with a green hill in the front. So same thing for the houses. The dies cut one continuous piece, but I didn't want to have green houses or green tree trunks. So this is my little trick. There's lots of different ways you can do this. You can ink blend, but I'm going to be coloring. So now you can see how those perfect little trees and houses are going to fit inside of my scalloped frame. I'm just going to be doing some easy alcohol marker coloring. So I have 2 colors of brown for the tree trunks, and I'm just laying this die, this is the Up a Tree die cut, onto my glasswork surface, and I'm just going to color in these tree trunks. Doesn't matter if I get down below the tree trunk line because it's all going to be covered up. And all I'm doing is just adding a whole bunch of color. And I'm not even worrying about getting color onto my work surface because since these markers are alcohol based, I can just come in with an alcohol swab and clean up my surface. And you can kind of see how that portion is going to come together when I lay the green hill over top of the tree trunks. Okay, so for this die, this is the Lil Pink Houses die, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, except I'm going to use a different variety of colors. I'm going to start with some pink, and I'm just going to create a whole rainbow of colors houses. I'll start with a pink house on the left, and then I'll go into my orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. In my finished card, the pink and the purple end up almost completely covered, but I hadn't planned that far ahead, so I just figured it was best to color them all anyway. Now for these houses, there are some little interactive elements. The windows of this house and then the doors on some of the houses open up. So I'm being careful not to color them. I'm going to come in with just a gray marker later on and give those just a little bit of white to kind of differentiate them from the rest of the houses. Once I have everything all colored, I'm going to take those little arcs and just trim off some of the excess cardstock because I don't need all that extra, and it's just going to add some extra bulk to my card that I don't want. So I just took my scissors and very roughly trimmed that off. It's not going to show at all. I'm deciding which hill I want in front. And I ended up with the darker one in the front. And now I'm just going to lay the green on top of my white piece so that you can see those little colored houses are going to peek out, and I'm still going to have a green hill. And this took almost no effort at all. All I had to do was just die cut an extra piece. So I'm going to use some liquid adhesive and just kind of line up those stitching lines so that I have, it almost looks like just a continuous die cut, and it's just so fun. It turned out amazingly awesome. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I'll do the same thing with the trees, just add some liquid adhesive onto the white die cut, and then add that lighter green cardstock right over the top. And then I can just squish that around with my fingers to make sure that I get that lined up just perfectly. I'm going to bring in that Slimline scallop frame so that I can start planning out how I want my card to look. I've cut and scored a card base, and this card base measures 8 1/4 inches long by 3 1/4 inches tall. And I'm just going to add just a little bit of blue to my background to look like a cloudy sky, and I'm using Marina Madness ink. This is the perfect color for skies, especially when it's applied lightly. I have been using this for all of my clouds and all of my skies lately. So I'm just going to plan out this card. This card took very little pre-planning, but a lot of kind of planning on the fly, as I like to say. So I'm just kind of laying everything in there. Nothing is cut down yet. There's a whole lot of excess green cardstock, and that's the way that I like to do that. It's a whole lot easier to trim cardstock off than it is to try to extend it later. So here are all of my images from the Today's Heroes stamp set. I colored them and I cut them out, and I am just going to figure out how I want to lay them across my scene. And so that's going to tell me how high I need to put these little grassy hills. So I'm just going to play around a little bit, and once I get that figured out, I'm going to just take a pencil and very lightly draw in some pencil lines, following the curve of the grass so that I can figure out right where to add everything. And then I'm going to take my liquid adhesive again and just start gluing things down. So I'll start by gluing that Lil Pink Houses border onto my Up a Tree border. And I am being careful not to add adhesive to where the doors and windows are. Then I can add that onto my Slimline card base and just use my scissors and trim away all this extra cardstock. And I will save this for use on future projects. It's definitely not going to go to waste, but I'd rather just have that extra there so that I can have some room to play around with. Then I'll add my Slimline scallop frame onto the card, and then I'm just going to start adding the little leaves onto the trees. So I cut these out of 2 colors of cardstock. One of them is a little bit lighter than the lightest hill, and one of them is the same color as the darker hill, so that everything would coordinate. So I used 2 colors of cardstock, and there are 3 shapes of leaves for the trees. So I'm just kind of alternating through the 2 colors and the 3 shapes to get a variety of trees on my hill. Once I'm done there, I'm going to bring in all of my little heroes from the Today's Heroes stamp set and add some foam behind them. I tried to space them out evenly so that they would look perfect across the front of my card. And I love that the Today's Heroes stamp set has all of these different heroes on it. There's a girl delivering groceries, there's a takeout guy, a police officer, a lot of different medical professionals, and a teacher. So this is pretty inclusive of a lot of the heroes that we have been thanking in these days. Once I'm done adding those, I realized I forgot to add a sentiment, and I considered adding it to the inside, but I decided to take a sentiment from the Today's Hero stamp set and just stamp it on a little banner and add that tucked behind my Slimline scallop frame. And this completes my card. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you enjoy. Remember to head over to the LDRS Creative website and place an order, and the Today's Heroes stamp set will be added to your order as long as supplies last. I'll see you soon. Bye!